Good morning, and Clint, thank you for more than that, more than a heartfelt, and you certainly did a lot of research in that introduction. Thank you. It's my pleasure to be here, and as is the tradition of our government, first of all, let me acknowledge that we are on the traditional territories of the Coast Salish, the Tsleil-Waututh, and the Squamish people. And Jerry Lattman, thank you very much as the Executive Director for inviting me here today. I'm very much delighted to give you a British Columbia perspective on where technology and where innovation fits in, and where it meshes in, and where it meshes in your space, and how this positive impact and the impact it has on your industry, the building industry. And I have a pleasure and a privilege, I'd say, to speak and to interact with a wide section of industry groups across BC and across the country, and sometimes internationally as well, with a wide base of individuals. And here's what I learned. Most of all, tech is everywhere. It's not something that's embedded in one geographical region or one industry. It's embedded in everything we do, everywhere we do it. It's transformative, it's forward-looking, it's a necessity as well, too. So here's a tech picture for BC. We're at 102,349 jobs today, and the moment I said that, I was wrong, because it grows by the minute. It is a sector that pays about 75% higher salaries than the average wage in British Columbia. If you take oil, gas, mining, and forestry, and you put that together, that's the size of the tech space in this province now, and it's growing at double the rate of any of the other sectors so far. It's had quite an impact on every nook and cranny of every other industry. It's very much a symbiotic relationship. It's not one where it's natural resources or tech. It's not an either-or, it's a symbiotic that one supports the other. It's advances in technology and knowledge, and it's creating more and more opportunities for companies to innovate. It's architects, engineers, contractors, owners, operators they're in your room here. I can see that you're not designing, you're not thinking, you're not building, you're not managing without using some level of technology. And I suspect in the next decade, you'll be more data and technology managers as opposed to contractors and builders. So in the spirit of transformative, and this is not something we started today, 10 years ago, as a government, we determined that we have to take the lead, and we committed that any new building that we built is going to have a minimum LEED gold standard. That was 10 years ago. So you would think that there's institutions and organizations that are starting this last year and the year before. We thought about this 10 years ago, that we have to be sustainable. Not only new buildings, where we're doing substantial renovations, where it makes sense. You know, there are many of our buildings that are nearing end of useful life as well, but where it makes sense that any of our renovations also meet those LEED gold standards. We have done 96 gold projects since 2007. So we're looking in the last 7 or 8 years, 96 projects alone that have been done or ongoing at the gold level. There's a number of our organizations that are also looking, can you get a little better than that? So there are a number of our buildings that are at the platinum level. And I think that's very, very important for us to look at that. Wherever practical, can we go even beyond that? Many of you have heard of the Living Building Challenge. This is something that we are very, very much engaged in, and wherever possible. And you know, it's about energy systems, it's about data management, it's about a whole host of things. My ministry also has several projects that relied on contractors who used BIM. And in a number of our buildings, we have all of our, perhaps you don't know what my ministry does. I build everything from the tech file, I do innovation, which is the research at all the universities, but also I'm the general contractor and the manager of every provincial building in the province as well. There's some 1,800 of them. So we build buildings for kids up to cons. So I just finished a prison. So in Oliver, we have the state-of-the-art Okanagan Correctional Facility, and many, many of your systems that you talk about are employed in that prison. We just turned over the keys to the Solicitor General less than 90 days ago. The Surrey Pre-Trial Services Centre expansion, that was another one of the projects where many of your colleagues were engaged. Soon to be opened, the BC Wildlife Service Caribou Fire Centre in Williams Lake, another example where you mesh traditional contract construction and BIM all in one. How many of you have visited the Prince George, the Wood Innovation Design Centre in Prince George? So that was certainly a gathering place for researchers, for academics, for design professionals. It celebrated BC. It celebrated the beauty of wood, which is our, where this province started from. But it shows also the potential uses. At that time, about 30 meters tall, tallest wood building anywhere at that time. It's soon to be eclipsed by UBC's 53-meter tall Brock Commons building. So we're showing the world in British Columbia how you can use traditional products and yet do things that weren't done. We started with a one-story bungalow, then the two-story, then the three. Then we looked at the four-story buildings in parts of China where we're designing trusses right here from British Columbia for those buildings, right to 53-meter tall buildings made out of BC wood. That's embracing technology. Your building information modeling is asking the right questions, and it's the same questions that we're asking every time we approve, we design, we put the request for proposals in the buildings we're going to do. Building design, building performance drives design, and that's something we're putting right into our request for proposals is performance drive design instead of the other way around. How profitable would it be if you optimize for operations and performance? How could you do better communication to speed up information for infrastructure projects? And that's very important for us as well when we're doing these large projects. And so very, very important for us. So let me talk about the broad tech strategy and what's happening in this province. This didn't start yesterday. It's been years in the making, a very comprehensive process that consults with the tech sector and asks them specifically, what do you need to grow? And what do you need as a tech space to grow big and stay home? How do I encourage you to become a 2 to a 10 to a 20 to a 1,000 person company? What do you need, and how do I encourage you to stay and make this your domicile? So through that process, we identified a number of priorities and initiatives to strengthen that sector. And it's an evolving sector. It's an evolving strategy. So it's a mission in progress. And it's got 3 pillars. It's got the capital pillar. They need capital, and Clint talked about our $100 million tech fund. It needs talent. I'm going to talk more about talent. And it's about markets as well, what we're doing to encourage and assist them in markets. So first of all, the $100 million tech fund, we looked under the couches of government and we found all the spare change. We didn't borrow this money, folks. This is money in the bank. And that's what comes as a product of prudent fiscal management. That $100 million of provincial money, that is going to have anywhere between a 4 and a 6x multiplier, as they say in the tech space. We can bring in $400 to $600 million of private equity to join our $100 million, which is the catalyst of putting close to $500 million or more of space for small tech companies to grow big and to stay home. And we put out an open tender. Kensington Capital Partners are our fund manager. It's arm's length. I don't decide which company gets it and which company doesn't. They'll look at it very much based on the zero value proposition. Is it going to make the market, and is it going to go big? They made a couple of investments already. Mogio is a Vancouver-based tech firm. That's about car-to-car communication. It's right here. The cutting edge of the world car-to-car communication is right here, and that was one of their first investments. The other one we put in is a company called VanEdge, which invests in a variety of different companies. That's the venture space. A lot of eyes are on BC on investing here. Deepening the talent pool was very important. Clint mentioned that we put coding into schools. There are 3 places in the world that do that. The UK, New York of all places, and BC. We had to look at talent as a long-term. We need to teach children to be more creative. We need them to think more creatively. All of us that went through school, we studied the War of 1812. All of us probably did that, and all the things, and the Louis Riel Rebellion, and then we did a test at the end. It was very memorization-based, but we're changing the curriculum so it's creativity and thought-provoking. And coding is a tool by which we can do that. So by the time The child graduates grade 9, they're going to have access to coding. We're going to even change it more, whether they're going to get into perhaps robotics by the time they finish grade 9 or 10. Can you imagine taking your first year of university in the tech space while you're in high school? We're going to do that as well. So we're the first in the country, first in North America to do it. I know Ontario is going to say that they started coding and they're going to say they invented it, but it didn't happen in Toronto, it didn't happen in Ontario, it happened right here. We're looking at the high school level as well too. The university level, is we are re-engineering education and making sure that our $2.1 billion a year that we spend on post-secondary education, that we're graduating what industry says they need. How many do they need? What do they need? When do they need them? We're being very prescriptive. No one else in the country is doing that. That's very important to acknowledge. We announced that co-ops will be mandatory in any new tech program. So if there's any new tech program that a university or a college puts forth, the Minister of Advanced Education will not sign off on that new degree unless it has a co-op version. Industry said you're sending out young people, they're excellent in theory, we've got excellent education, but they need hands-on. So every new grad is going to have hands-on experience, and that's an area, stay tuned for the next 60, 90 days that I want to enhance. The tech space is asking me double the number of co-ops, because I fund co-op positions. We pay half the salary for many of these co-op positions. The whole area of sustainability, and something that's near and dear to you, sustainability, building design. We had about 85 megatronics engineering positions at the Surrey campus of SFU. So we didn't go from 85 to 100 to 150. We put 455 new engineering positions at the SFU Surrey campus. It's all around engineering systems, energy systems for buildings and clean tech. Our partnership with the federal government resulted in, it was about $126 million. So going from 85 engineers to 455 in one announcement, and a lot of that is on energy systems, new building, all sorts of new opportunities in that space. Last week, many of you may have seen the announcement that the Premier announced that UBC's President, Professor Santaono, is going to look at innovation in a very strong way. How do you do research at universities? How do you mesh with your space and the broader tech space to make that research more relevant and more prone to innovation? We have to do better on productivity as a province and as a country. And to do that, we need to mesh universities tightly and more succinctly and surgically with the industry. And that's one of the assignments that President Ono has taken on now. We are doing a labor market analysis. You know, it's easy to just throw a whole bunch of money at universities. We hope that they graduate the right people and we hope they have the right skills. But we went out to the tech space across the province and asked specifically, what skill do you need? How many do you need? When do you need them? And where we need them? So we put about $500,000 into that. And that's going to come out soon. And that instrument's going to decide what we graduate and where we graduate them. So stay tuned. I can share with this room. That's the whole talent development side. And this is not just happening now. Some would suggest it's election year, and of course you're going to do this and all that kind of stuff. But this is something that we've been working on for several years. As we have the instrument now, now we're going to specifically decide what kind of skill sets we need, and that's very important. The third pillar is access to markets. If you have a great idea, when a CEO wakes up in the morning, they say, you know, do I have the money to pay payroll next 2 weeks? Do I have the talent to expand? And the third is, do I have the market? So what can we as a government do on markets? First of all, I think we need to procure and buy better. We sometimes I say that we have not been good buyers as government. We procure billions and billions every year. How do we buy better, and how do we buy local wherever possible? How do we break down our contracts into bite-sized pieces where you can be a recipient of that? That's something we're very much looking at in our purchasing and procurement strategy. But then when you have an idea and you have a company and they want to go to market, and most of our companies are exporters. So we have opened up trade offices as a province all over the world. If you want to go to Korea, if you want to go to Japan, if you want to go to 3 different cities in India that cover the entire continent, if you want to cover China, and now we opened our latest office in Manila. because the Southeast Asia is an emerging market. We have a trade office for British Columbia entrepreneurs to connect with. If you want to go to Manila and hit that whole Southeast Asia market, we have staff on the ground that will be your concierge for you to help penetrate those markets. That's important for us to do. We signed the British Columbia-Washington State Innovation Corridor agreement just very recently, the Premier and the Governor of that state. It's about an inspirational message. It's about practical, can we do summits on technology together? It's about research, can we be collaborative together? Because very, very much alike in the Pacific Northwest. Just last week, I spent the day with Boeing officials in Seattle talking just about that, how they can mesh more with what we do. Let me give you an example of how tightly we're meshed. When you're flying on a Dreamliner 787 from wherever you're going, the chances are many, many, many of those products that go into that, in that facility in Seattle are built in Canada. They have plants all across the country, Winnipeg, Ontario. Chances are the data analysis for that flight in terms of maintenance is done right here. Within about 1 kilometer from here, we have 250 data analysts from Boeing. They're here because Boeing found that the best skills in the world for that area is right here. So they helped design the program at UBC, and they put that data analysis center right here in British Columbia. And you know, my goal when I meet with companies like Boeing is how do you take 250 data analysts and turn that into 1,000? Because the skill set was here. That's how tightly we're meshed. The landing gear on most Boeings is actually built in Winnipeg. Most people didn't know that, because we have some of the precious metals and the background, and it's the closest place to build them. It's how tightly meshed the market is. I'm going to put some shameless plugs in at the end. We had a tech summit last year. You know, we thought we'd get 1,000 people in. We thought we'd get 1,500 people in. Well, 4,000 people from the world showed up just a couple of blocks from here at the convention center to have our inaugural tech summit. It was a huge success. From every tech space was there, you know, from the engineers, architectural, from the gamers, the life sciences, the clean tech folks. And they meshed. There was unintended collisions in the hallway. We had 1,500 students that came in for Coding Academy. We had a job fair at the end. Usually on the last day of a summit, when you speak and the crowd's half empty, well, our crowd was full. They were there still at the end. We had a job fair where students from across the country came to secure jobs here. So this year, with a lot of demand from the space, we're doing it again, March 14, 15. This year at the Convention Center, we're bringing the world here. We're showcasing made in BC technology. We're bringing universities, we're bringing students, we're bringing K-12, we're bringing educators. And we're inviting the world to say that we are Tech BC. We have huge opportunities. We are on the cutting edge. We're looking forward. And I think there's one message I may leave you with. In British Columbia, we have the opportunity to change the world. There are inventions, there are systems, there are companies in this province that are ahead of everybody else, not in British Columbia, not in Canada, in the world. And the message that young child who's in school is that they can get a degree in this province. It's world-level education. They can get a job in this province. And the inspirational part of that, whatever vertical you're in, I think they can change lives, not only here, not only in Canada, not only in North America, but they can change lives on the other side of the planet from the things that they do right here in our province. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for what you do and how you're being so innovative in your space. So thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Minister. I was remiss at the introduction. I had intended to note that we would like to have some questions from the audience. The Minister's agreed to share. So if I may, I'll lead, if I may, with the first question, Minister. You speak of attracting capital and again, that investment from within our own, the $100 million, which personally I applaud, but also of talent. So attracting talent, attracting capital. On this notion of where people work, the brain trust, they're thinking, they're studying, they're in universities, they're in offices, what have you. Within your team, have you identified the correlation or the opportunity by how buildings, better buildings, building performance, can help improve productivity, and secondly, to attract more talent?
Clint, it all certainly meshes in. First of all, broadly on the building information management systems is it has an incredible spin-off opportunity. I go to so many different pitches where you have young tech entrepreneurs and they have a new measurement. Here's the latest I seen was a mechanism by which the building knows exactly who's in there. People voluntarily register, and they are able to, and they're going way out there, manage, look at body heat, look at blood pressure, look at heart rate, and then have that tied into a building's heat ventilation system. Amazing. So that's where the spin-offs that I can only imagine that are happening, and that, so the kind of things that you're doing on smart buildings, this is beyond smart buildings. So there's incredible opportunities from what you do, and the spin-off is this, and I don't even know what the next idea is going to be at the next event. Now the talent side, that's very important. It's showing the next generation that if you have a really good idea, that you don't have to jump on a plane and go to that country south of us or somewhere else. That we have the ability to take that idea, to nurture it, to give it investment, to turn it into a company and into an idea right here. So that's where that talent meshes in. So, guys, I'm gonna open the floor for questions. You know, in terms of BC's place, the geopolitical climate, the tech space. Any thoughts? Any ideas? Or should I pick on someone first? So, where do we want to start? Tech, right there. Is there a roving mic? Oh, there's one right here.
Thank you for being here. We appreciate it. The tech industry and the construction industry are completely different beasts. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Tech is much more homogenous. You have a sort of a voice that you can speak to. Construction, we're fragmented. Mm-hmm. What is the plan to support innovation within a construction industry that is fragmented?
Well, I think, first of all, the fact that you are gathered here as a group and even raising your profile in the tech space and finding those mechanisms how the traditional building system, you know, put 2x4s together, put a roof on, sell it, and away you go. But, you know, the embedded technology in the buildings that's there, the data collection that's there, I think the fact that you're doing this allows that portal and that connection. My ministry has three veins. As I said, I manage the tech side. I'm the one that meets with Amazon, Microsoft. I do the research, but the citizen services in my title is all about the real estate side of government. I am the buyer and the seller of our government property. We manage and build every government building. And in that space, what we want to do is we want to encourage the use of your technology in what we do as government. So we want to be, I guess we want to trial and test your products in some ways and your stuff, what you do. So what Clint talked about is if there are those individuals that want to work with our ministry, we have 1,800 buildings. 1,800 buildings, various ages, various conditions, where there is new and cutting-edge technology. Our government's role is we can be a reference customer at times. So that's one portal for us to be a reference customer for your ideas. So I'm also open to other ideas that the floor may have afterwards in terms of how we can mesh those ideas together. Anybody else? World is good. Oh. No, one here and then here. Okay, sir.
Well, thank you again for coming in and sharing your enthusiasm. I'm Larry Harder. I'm Director of Capital Projects for the Lower Mainland health facilities. Mm. And we are trying to integrate BIM into our projects. And we build close to $90 million of healthcare facilities annually. And we've got a couple of pilot projects that we're trying to introduce BIM. And I would like you to speak to the Minister of Health and just ask him, what's your BIM rollout program? And then I'd be ready to respond and say, we're ready. We just need some support from the top to unroll this technology. Okay.
Well, I will pass that message on. And I don't disagree with you that we as government, as I said, need to procure better. And we need to be on the cutting edge and be that example for private industry wherever possible. In our programs where we're looking at, every building is gold or better, but the next is let's get beyond the gold or better. Let's look at the whole use of data, the whole use of BIM. So absolutely, I will pass your message on personally to that minister.
Great.
Right over here.
Thank you. My question is about the construction projects that are done by the ministry.
Yes.
My question is, would the ministry consider making BIM compulsory on those projects, similar to other governments in the UK, Singapore, and so on?
Okay. Well, it's certainly an area we as the discussions have been at the very initial stages, and I think as we learn more, as my ministry staff learn about more of the opportunities and the initial discussions we've had, we certainly want to offer our buildings and be reference customers wherever possible for trials, for tests, if it's feasible and it's in the best public interest. So that's something we'll certainly absolutely look at. We were 10 years ago, we decided you're going to be leaders in environmental design. So I don't see any reason why now we won't be leaders in terms of how we manage and design our buildings. There have been a number of them that have been very much meshed with BIM technology. As I said, the 3 buildings, the one in Williams Lake, the Correction Center. And if you haven't seen, you go to the Correction Center in Osoyoos, it's an example of BIM in place. It's everything from biometrics to fingerprints to building design to common airflow to data management to everything you could imagine. It's incredible. You can't even tell it's a jail, actually. I came around the corner, you couldn't tell it's a jail. It is a prime example of where BIM meshes with traditional industry, so we're very much open to that.
Any other questions?
Very good, perfect. Well, thank you for those questions.